Good afternoon. Welcome to NJRHA's educational webinar series with VenueX. I'd like to introduce you to Abed and Hassan. They are going to provide a webinar to demystify contact tracing. Now, I have questions, but we'll save those questions for the end, or you could just put them in the chat box, and they will be more than happy to answer your question throughout their presentation. And again, thank you for joining, and I will turn it over to Abed.
Thank you, Shah. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Abed Al-Samna. I'm joined here today with Hassan Mahmoud. We are the co-founders of a technology business based in New Jersey and called VenueX. And just from a high level, in short, what we do is we provide venues with their own suite of technology to help them become tech-enabled with their own custom branded suite of apps. So that's kind of what we do from a high level. Just wanted to thank you again before we jump into everything for taking the time today. Today, we're going to be covering a topic that you, I'm sure, have heard about all over the news across all different social media outlets during this pandemic. It's a topic that we think is especially going to be helpful to drive a safe reopening for the wedding and events industry as we all kind of wait for that reopening date. And that topic is contact tracing. And this is just the Hassan and myself. The goal of today's webinar is for you guys to walk away learning a few different things. Number one, we're going to break down what contact tracing actually is. We're going to demystify contact tracing. We're going to talk to you about the impacts of contact tracing to your business. How is it going to impact the wedding and events industry, and how is it going to impact what that reopening actually looks like? Then we'll jump into some powerful technology solutions for reopening. How could some technology help provide that contact tracing capability to help provide a safer environment for that reopening? We'll talk to you about capacity limitations. You've probably heard the governor speak about a different phased approach to reopening, how that's going to impact the guest list of these events, that you're going to shrink down the guest list. You may have 25% capacity, 50% capacity, and that will increase over time. But what is that impact to your business? And then how can you actually continue to get people engaged who can actually make it to those events? And then finally, bonus topic that we love talking about, a little outside of contact tracing, but talking about different ways to actually monetize and capture lost revenue from the folks who attend the events at your venues or attend events in general throughout an entire year. How do you capture revenue from the guests who attend these events? So, starting off, what is contact tracing? So by definition, contact tracing is an effective measure to control viral outbreaks by identifying and isolating anyone who has come into contact with an infected individual. Now, what does that actually mean? So let's say 250 people attend a large event at a venue, including staff as well as vendors. If one person is exposed, or one person has the virus, they've now exposed 249 other folks who are also at that event. So what do you need to do to actually stop the virus from continuing to spread? And that's where contact tracing comes in. Contact tracing has been an effective measure used for other crises over in the past couple of years. Talking about during the Ebola crisis, it worked very well for H1N1, and it's known to be working very well so far for COVID-19. In the United States alone, we're hiring close to 100,000 people to perform this activity. Now, how does it actually work? When somebody tests positive for COVID-19, those results are reported to the CDC. When the CDC gets that information, they then pass it off to contact tracers to begin the actual contact tracing activity. These people who are very skilled in being empathetic and speaking to people about this topic and getting them to open up about their symptoms will reach out to them directly, give them a call, send them an email, ask them about their basic information. What are the symptoms that they've been experiencing within a certain amount of time? They'll then ask about the infectious period. How long have they been feeling these symptoms? They'll begin to identify and ask them about other folks that they've been in contact with. So the CDC recommends to get information for anybody who has been less than 6 feet apart from somebody who's been in contact with for 15 minutes. So if you've been less than 6 feet apart and been in contact with them for 15 minutes, that person should be reached out to, and that person should be contacted about their symptoms. They'll recommend that they isolate for 14 days. Stay away from people so you don't continue to expose other folks with the virus. And then they begin the actual contact tracing. They'll reach out to the contacts who they've been in contact with, give them a call. Again, start from step number 1 and continue on to learn more about their symptoms, ask them to self-isolate, and then continue to check in every single day to make sure that they're actually doing that. Now, we've seen in New Jersey, Governor Murphy we had an original reopening date of July 2nd. He had to pull that back because of reckless behavior from some establishments in the state. A lot of folks are not taking this very seriously. So these contact tracers are tasked to make sure people are being conscious of not exposing other folks and checking in with them on a daily basis. Now, the importance of contact tracing. We've seen Dr. Anthony Fauci talk about contact tracing for the past couple months. We've seen him across the internet, across social media, right by the president's side in those daily briefings, and in a bunch of memes that were hilarious to see on the internet. But he was the face of the COVID-19 task force. And he says, and I quote, that we must be prepared that when the infections start to rear their heads again, that we have in place a very aggressive and effective way to identify, isolate, contact trace, and make sure we don't have any more spikes. So how does that actually translate to the wedding and events industry? Again, going back to that example that I mentioned before, 250 people at a large gathering is kind of a scary thing when you think about it nowadays. A lot of folks are still feeling uncomfortable about doing that. But venues can help facilitate that contact tracing by providing that data. And that data is important to have for that particular reason. Now, what information do they actually need? Number 1, master guest list. You need to know every single person who's attending an event at all times. So their full name, their phone number, their physical address, as well as their email, to be able to actually reach out to them directly to begin that contact tracing process. Their seating assignments. What table are they sitting at in the room? What's the room position of the table relative to the entire floor plan? And what is that guest proximity? Going back to being less than 6 feet apart within a 15-minute window of these particular people. So the guest proximity, who are these people actually sitting next to during these events? Staff and vendor data. How about the folks who are actually running the event? On the venue side, so the employees of the venue, the waiters and the waitresses and the other staff, and then the vendors who are actually producing the event. So the DJ, the photographer, the videographer, all of these folks still need to be contact traced as well. So their full name, their phone, address, email, their team size. A lot of times they're coming with a team, and the main point of contact for that particular vendor. And then finally, and most importantly, this information has to be easily accessible. It has to be produced in a shareable format so that in the event, government authorities knock on the door and say, hey, Venue XYZ, we'd like to know every single person who's been at an event over the past week. They have to be able to download it in a very easy way and share it to these authorities. And the best way to do that is by doing it in some kind of technology in an Excel format. Now, what are the problems that people face today in terms of storing and accessing this information? Where and how is it actually stored today? A lot of times the hosts are still maybe doing things kind of the archaic way, which is by pen and paper. So they may be doing a guest list by pen and paper, so that master guest list that we talked about before. They may be taking a picture of it, sending it off in an email to the venue. So it's not easily accessed. There's a lot of privacy concerns for that matter as well. Some folks may be a little bit more advanced technologically and are using a Microsoft Excel and doing things in the Excel spreadsheet and passing that off. Again, some privacy concerns there. Some may be using other third-party tools on the internet. But again, not in a consolidated place for the venue to actually download and share it immediately. And again, doing things the archaic way of post-it notes and on paper for the floor plan, that guest proximity, where are these people sitting, what are their table assignments? There has to be a better way to do it through technology.
All right. So, now we have to ask ourselves, whose responsibility is it to store and access this data, have this data available? So just to take a quick step back, if an infected person attends an event, the government needs to use this information to identify, test, and quarantine the hundreds of people at the event as fast as possible. Now, today, there's no explicit requirements for venues regarding contact tracing, but that may not be the case for long. And in fact, with everything we've seen with COVID-19 related, it could change overnight. So Governor Murphy hasn't been clear in who will need to provide the event information to contact tracers. But in states with fewer restrictions in place, such as Texas and Maine, the responsibility for gathering this information does belong to the venue, which is reasonable. Venues are the place where the events are being held, and they're easier to hold accountable, which, as we mentioned earlier, means that venues are responsible for the master guest list. And getting that information is harder than it sounds. Brides and grooms, like all of us, they're dealing with the challenges of the pandemic. They may not have an accurate guest list at this time because they don't know if their cousin from Florida is going to be able to, even if they can fly up, will they have to quarantine for 14 days, and what will be the case there with them. And there's also the simple problem of whether or not they have the contact information for a guest. In the past, it was okay to just say Jack +1 or the Smith family. Now you need the individual information for each member of the family. Jack's +1, you need the contact information for that +1. So the host has to go out and gather that information. And the longer this pandemic goes on, the more we're going to expect to see strict guidelines and requirements around contact tracing. And these changes and the guidelines that are released, they may be reactionary. If tracing potential infections from events creates a lot of strain on the government's contact tracing team, or if the government finds that they're just unable to gather the necessary information fast enough, we could see more explicit and stricter requirements. So what we've done is we've taken a look at what it takes from a logistical point of view for the government to contact trace. As mentioned, we know they're going to need that information in Excel format. Many venues, you already require the host to send you some type of master guest list. But before COVID, that guest list might be incomplete or inaccurate if it was even sent at all. So for contact tracing, it's important that that changes. As great a tool as Excel is, like Abed mentioned, it's not uncommon to find a host using a third-party tool, Microsoft Word, or even still pen and paper. So although the government hasn't said that, it's important that you start asking your host to start gathering that information in that format. So when the contact tracers reach out and they say, we need an Excel format, you have it available for them. So that information, like we said, is going to need to be available on demand. Each day that the government doesn't have that information is another day where attendees could be spreading the disease. So the easiest place to store the data is the cloud. You probably already have some kind of service available to you to store it. You can store it with, if you're using Gmail or G Suite, you probably have access to Google Drive. If you're using Microsoft, there's something called OneDrive where you can store it. Both are going to let you create individual folders. So we recommend creating individual folders for each event. I actually think it's better to go also a step further where you create an individual folder for each week. Contact tracing won't require you to go back more than 2 weeks, most likely. But if they ask you for an event, you don't want to have to go and sort through all your past events. You want to start organizing them, not have to worry about, which ones you're going to delete, which ones you're going to keep. Just keep it nice and organized for yourself from the beginning. And then, of course, there's also the challenge of just requesting the information. A lot of hosts are going to be understanding, but as we know, some may kind of, push back. Some may be wary to give you the guest's contact information. One of the best ways to solve this problem or kind of get ahead of it is to create a privacy policy. There's a lot of lawyers out there who specialize in privacy policies, and you can reach out to them to put one together. We have our own in the app. We'll talk about that in a moment. But if you're going to be doing contact tracing on your own, you're going to want to have that privacy policy in place, because even though it's something required from the government, you may still get pushback, and being able to point your hosts to a policy that says, this is the data we're gathering from you, this is how we're going to use it, you can rest comfortable that this is the processes and procedures we're using to do that. And then one last thing I also want to mention is that Maine also has a quarantine similar to New Jersey, where people coming from out of state, but it does also have an exception where if guests are staying overnight, that they can, or I'm sorry, they also have an exception that people that test negative for COVID don't have to quarantine. New Jersey currently doesn't have that, but what happened in Maine is it seems that venues with overnight guests are responsible for gathering some kind of certificate or attestation that the person tested negative if they're not quarantined. So we don't have that in New Jersey, and it's something that's important to keep in mind, not just if you have overnight guests, but also kind of just to realize the extent of the kind of responsibilities that may fall to a venue, and just being prepared to kind of adapt to that on an event by event level over the next few months. So, you know, I know this can all seem kind of like a lot of difficult work, but the good news is that with the right processes and tools in place, whether it's through VenueX or or a manual solution, you know, hosts can begin gathering that information now. You and your staff can work together to create the processes, the procedures, and choose the right tools so that once you do need to provide information over to the government, you already have everything in place. And that's what we've done with VenueX during the pandemic. Early on, Abby, could we go to the next slide? Actually, no, I'm sorry, this slide. That's what we've done with VenueX during the pandemic. Early on, we saw the writing on the wall that contact tracing would be a necessity and added that capability to our platform. So what we've done is we've tried to address all of the requirements that we can expect. We've put restrictions on the guest list. So now hosts can no longer enter you know, a party size of 4. If it's a family of 4, they are going to have to add each individual person. If there's someone bringing a +1, they need to add that guest and their +1's name. And they need that in order to be able to assign them to the seating chart. Well, we've been working with our clients to upload whatever seating chart they're using for that event so that the host can, you know, has the limitations. If, you know, they're going to put 6 people on this table and this table is 6 feet apart, they have all of that information, all of that available to them to manipulate and add to the seating chart as needed. We also now added to our vendor list the ability to add this individual staff members for each vendor, so that if they're photographers coming and they have 2 other people with them, that information goes into the vendor list, and all of that gets combined and sent to you in Excel sheets so that you have it available in the right format. You can go to the calendar and download all that information for that one event. And you can rest assured that because it came through the app, that they had to meet all of those specific requirements in order for it to be up on there, available for you to see and use for the day of the event. So when Abbott and I, you know, started VenueX, though, our vision wasn't to be a contact tracing platform. It was to help venues take advantage of the benefits that modern technology offers, so that they can help, you know, so that they can grow their business and meet the expectations of the modern consumer. Our platform, it brings host engagement to the 21st century using your own suite of branded apps. Guests attending an event at your venue can download the mobile app that lets them view and share photos from that event in its own private gallery, which engages them with your venue and your venue's brand, giving you the opportunity to convert them into customers in the future. Hosts are going to love having access to all the photos that their guests take. Right now, maybe they'll have access to some of the photos from a hashtag or the ones that get sent. But with the VenueX gallery, which is going to come through your app, all the photos that anyone takes and uploads are going to be available for the host. And then you'll also be able to follow up with the guests to convert them into customers. And your hosts are going to really, you know, thank you for every single photo that they get, because, you know, people expect technology today. And a small but consistent frustration among hosts and venues that we've seen is something, you know, we were talking about it earlier, is with the seating chart. Hosts, you know, in some scenarios, like we were saying, they're using Post-it notes, note cards, they're using pen and paper or Excel to put together a seating chart. It's a painful solution. And then and that's just assigning it to the guests to the table. But with the seating chart, you also see a lot of frustrations from the hosts just in getting it over to the venue. Believe it or not, there's still some venues out there that ask people to fax over the completed seating chart with the number, you know, with the guests assigned to each table. Or they have to come in and drop it off in person. These are all the kind of frustrations that we want to work to eliminate through using VenueX. Because at the end of the day, Without technology, all of these processes can be extremely painful, and it'll lead to delays in your venue getting the information it needs for the day of the event. And whether it's for contact tracing or just plain old customer satisfaction, we want to be part of that solution, like I said. And technology doesn't just help reduce costs, but it can also help you generate new income streams. Make your life easier by taking things that were done by pen and paper and taking them digital so that you can finish them faster. And the most important part, you can accomplish all of this without any upfront cost or development headache. Once you send us the necessary information, we'll begin the onboarding process, and billing doesn't start until you're up and running. Now, the VenueX platform, it's made up of 3 apps that are custom branded to your venue. First is the Venue web application. This application is where you and your staff grant access to your hosts through the calendar. So once you add an event to the calendar, your host is going to receive a series of automated emails with their login information and the link to the app. The app is going to be hosted on your URL, so the host can access it right through your website. So if it would be yourvenue.com/app is the way that they'll access it. This is going to give them a feeling of a seamless app or a seamless experience, knowing that the app they're using is coming from you. Your staff is directly involved in interacting with them for each for their event. The host application, like the venue application, is going to be branded with your logo, colors. It's going to have your custom seating charts and a lot of other small details to make sure that your hosts know that their venue is partnering with them and working with them one-on-one to give them the best possible experience, not just offline, but online as well. In the application, we have a lot of features. We won't go into too much detail about them, but there's a checklist where you can make sure that your host is aware of all the required items. There's also a vendor management tool where they can select from your house vendors, which is another potential source of revenue for you, a budget planner, and a lot of other great features. What I'm really excited to talk about is one of my favorite features in our platform is the guest mobile app. So thousands of guests enter your venue every year. And I don't know if you've ever wondered, how much you're losing by not following up with them after the event. So through the guest mobile app, which is branded to your venue, that's available on the Android and Apple store with your venue as the publisher. So again, going back to that theme, the guests are going to know this is coming directly from your venue, a tech-enabled venue. And the guests that download the app, they're going to be able to view and share photos in an Instagram-style feed for the event. They can even sign a digital guest book, and all of that is stored in a private event gallery, which can only be accessed through a code specific to that event. So most importantly, with those guests, after they download the app, you can choose to send them an elegant email and thank them for joining an event at your venue, which also allows you to promote your venue and follow up and create potential leads for you in the process. So a lot of our clients, we've worked with them, we give them a competitive edge. Now with the pandemic and the COVID-19 situation that we're facing right now, there's a lot of reasons that people are working with us. Contact tracing, it seems to be an inevitable reality for venues in the near future. VenueX is going to help you take the steps that you need to meet contact tracing requirements in a way that's painless for you, your staff, and your hosts. And we don't really know what the future holds, but Abid and I are going to spend every single day working to do everything possible to adapt our platform to solve whatever solutions we can, or solve whatever problems we can. For your visitors and staff, this is a scary time. And this is just one of the many steps that venues can take to show that they are serious about doing their part to help beat COVID-19. Having these kind of measures in place gives you another way to send a strong signal about how much your venue cares about the safety of your hosts, the guests, the staff, and the community. And finally, just being tech-enabled. By being able to offer apps under your brand, whether it's the web app to the hosts or the guest mobile app or the mobile app to the guests, you can show people that you are a tech-savvy venue, you are ready for the 21st century, and you know how to provide them with the kind of experience that they've come to expect in this day and age. So VenueX is going to help you prevent future waves. We have digital tools that are going to help capture event data and identify and be able to adapt to provide the kind of information that the authorities and governing bodies need. And then, you know, every single, excuse me, getting dried out. And also, we're going to help people identify new cases, so ahead of time. So in the event that there is an outbreak, with VenueX, you can get that information over to the government. They can reach out to that person, make the phone calls, find out if they have been infected, have them quarantine, identify who they've been in contact with, and stop the pandemic or stop the virus from spreading any further. And then finally, privacy. So VenueX, I mentioned privacy before. This is something that's going to be important because hosts are going to be apprehensive when it comes time to hand over information relating to their guests, or knowing that you're going to turn that information over to the authorities. So privacy policies can give your hosts and yourself comfort that things are being done in the right way. VenueX, we've got our own privacy policy right now that addresses this. That's going to work with that addresses and gives you the right to pass that information over. And it tells you who you're going to be passing it over to. And then next slide. Finally, VenueX, beyond contact tracing in this pandemic, there's a lot of different things that we can help you with. As we know, we can't have full-size events anymore. Events are much smaller. We have limitations. It's been bouncing back and forth from 100 indoors to 250 outdoors to 500 outdoors. So it's been all over the place. But the thing is, at the end of the day, not everybody that a host wants at an event is able to attend it, whether it's because of the limitations or just because they can't travel from they don't feel safe coming, they're high risk, or they're traveling from out of state and they can't travel in quarantine in time, or whatever the scenario is. Through VenueX, there's a lot of different things that we can do. Can we go to the next slide? So you can adapt to smaller events. With the mobile apps, guest lists are going to be smaller, but now you can have the guests that are attending the event take the photos, upload them, sign a digital guest book, and even the guests that aren't able to make it, if the host wants, they can share the event code with them, and they can post a picture of them in the outfit they would wear if they had attended the event, or sign the guest book despite not being able to make it there. So there's a lot of different ways using the mobile app that you can have people interact and be involved. For the family that wasn't able to make it and wishes they could, they can watch in real time as people upload photos of the first dance. They don't have to wait until it's posted on Instagram. They'll have, you know, dozens of photos taken by a lot of different people. And this is a very unique offering that your venue can give to your hosts, letting them know that, hey, even if you can't have the perfect event, at the end of the day, these events are about the memories, and you can have people take part in it, share those memories with them as you go on.
So we've talked about contact tracing. We broke it down for everybody. We talked about smaller events and how people can still be engaged remotely through a guest mobile app. But let's jump into a bonus topic here, which is how to monetize and capture lost revenue with VenueX. Hassan touched on that a little bit when he spoke about the guest mobile app. But very simply, if you have the ability to reach out to the guests after an event, you have an ability to capture them as prospective clients. And then we'll also talk about a different opportunity to capture lost revenue and monetize through a preferred vendor directory as well. Now, the guest mobile app allows folks, the tens of thousands of people who are attending events at a venue, to download, put in their email address, take pictures, sign a digital guest book, that entire social experience all in one place for a particular event. Now, the folks who do attend events are experiencing your technology, the fact that you're tech-enabled, your catering, so the food that you offer to them, the amazing hospitality experience that you're offering to them as well. But how do you actually close that loop? How do you get them, how is there a way to say thank you after an event happens? So with our platform, you have the ability to send a very simple message, thank you for attending an event here, or you can make it a little bit more complex and more of a standard template to send out and have people write reviews, where folks who are there can write a review from the guest experience. So think about it. When prospects are looking at different venues to do their event with, They're looking at all the reviews. Reviews drive businesses forward nowadays. Tons of people are looking at reviews. A negative review can be very detrimental to a business, so the more positive, the better. But if the prospective client sees reviews from the guest side as well, that gives them that level of comfort knowing that the folks who are going to be attending their event are also going to have an amazing experience. So it's a fantastic way to capture that from that end. Brand exposure. Being able to reach out to them, sending that follow-up helps you expose your brand even more. You're tech-enabled. You care about the folks who are there, not just while they're at the event, but after the fact. And then finally, organic outreach. Everyone's doing their own marketing in many different ways, paid ad, paid search, etc. Some of the stuff feels a little bit more promotional, but what if you had a way to do it organically, right? These are folks who have opted in to join the app while they're at the event to experience what you have to offer. So they're already engaged to a certain extent, and you being able to send out that follow-up is an organic way to reach out to people who may eventually do an event at your venue. Now let's talk about vendors. Venues typically have their preferred vendors. If I was getting married at XYZ venue, they would tell me, hey, these are the great DJs to use, the photographers, the videographers. Some folks have it on their website as well, preferred vendor list with every single category. And people may charge to be on that vendor list. But what if you can do it directly in one platform? What if there's a way to offer that one-stop shop where you provide that integrated experience for your clients or for hosts of the events to reach out to vendors directly and ask them about an event? And I'll show you what that looks like, that integrated experience. Shared vendor list, by doing all the vendor management things in an app, you have the ability to reach out to those vendors for contact tracing purposes that I mentioned before. Similar Excel format, very easily accessible and easy to read format. This whole process is super easy to manage. We handle all the listings ourselves. The venue doesn't have to do anything on their end. And then finally, adding an additional monetary stream of revenue for the venue. Some of our clients right now are charging between $50 to $100 a month for the venues to be on the platform. And that does two things. Number one, it provides them with more visibility, more eyeballs. Everything is all being done in one place for that planning piece. And then finally, gives them the ability to charge because they are generating more leads for those vendors. So you're creating a lead generation engine for them. Let's take a look and see what that looks like. This is just a sample for a photography company. One of our clients in North Jersey uses them. Beautiful looking listing, description, some sample pieces of their work, and they have the ability to contact them again directly in the app, send them a message, and then all the transactions actually happen offline. Going back to the vendor list, again, tracking all the vendors all in one place. Fantastic way to do that. Now, how does it work? The process is super easy. It's quick and easy to onboard. First and foremost, VenueX is behind the scenes. We are a technology partner for you. We work to brand and customize the apps for you. So first and foremost, we'll gather your assets, your colors, your logos, your floor plans, your checklist, things that will be needed to customize the entire experience. Then we start doing the onboarding process. We start deploying the apps to your domain. That takes a couple days for us to do. We'll create the App Store listings for both iOS as well as Android. And then finally, the actual app launch. The account manager who's working directly with you will sit down and train your team for every single facet of the app to make sure that you're fully comfortable. For you to give your clients access, but also the platform that your clients are going to be using as well, and the guest experience. So let us know if you'd like to reach out and learn some more about what we do. You can reach out to us and learn more about what we're doing for contact tracing. We've written a white paper about contact tracing and essentially where the industry is heading. You can see that at joinvenuex.com. Shoot us an email, sales@teamvenuex.com, or even give us a call, 201-448-9519. Thank you, everybody, for joining the webinar today. We'd love to be your technology partner as we work through this crisis, and we can help you do that together. And now we can turn it over to some questions if we have any. All right. So I don't see any questions here in the chat. Does anybody on the call have any questions?
Thank you, Abed and Hassan. I see we have one individual still with us. I've unmuted you if you would like to ask any questions, Angela. No questions. Okay. Well, gentlemen, I think that you did an excellent presentation. We here greatly appreciate you. And I believe that would be a wrap.
Beautiful. Thank you, Shah. And we'll touch base. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.